Hello, Chetsu here, and I'm going to be taking a look at all of the video game movies that were released in theaters, and basically comparing the pros and cons of each one of them, and maybe somewhere along the way we'll find out what it actually takes to make a great one. Okay, so naturally the first one we're going to be starting off with is going to be the Super Mario Brothers movie, the first movie-based game. Now, I watched the movie a couple of days ago, and as a refresher for this movie, I've seen the movie a couple of times, and I kind of skimmed through it, writing down the actual pros and cons before recording this. Okay, so I'm just going to go through each of the pros and cons that I wrote down and explain basically why I put them there. The first thing I have in the pros category is the premise. Now, while it is completely inaccurate to the game, I think the premise of the whole, alternate dimension where people evolved from dinosaurs is kind of an interesting concept. And the plan to merge the worlds and all that. It's granted it's not Mario, but as just a general film plot goes, could have been worse. It could have been just something completely unimaginative. It's certainly imaginative. I can't give it that. Um, The second pro I put down is the production value. Not really just the production value, but the cinematography, the sets, the way the film looks in general. For the most part, I will get into in the con section what I'm talking about by that. For the most part, the film looks great. Um, I think just general things that stand out, like the chase in the police car and just the way the action is shot, really well done in that regard. The music, I really like the theme in this movie. I don't know what it is about it, but it's one of those things that gets stuck in your head. Also, the actual I don't know if the music was licensed or if the music was actually made for the film, but the actual I'll just call it license. The licensed music that plays throughout the film, the end credits and all that. It's that kind of '90s cheese that I really enjoy. Whether you find it good or bad, it's completely subjective, but I find it entertaining at the very least. Okay, what in the world is this fourth thing that I wrote down? I'm just gonna skip it. Um, I wrote down plumbers. The fact that they're actually plumbers, honestly, I just find it odd. Of all the things that they actually kept from the games, that actually made a was actually significant part of the film. So you know, at least they got that right. That's all I'm saying with that. Um, Also, the last thing I put in the pros category is the Goombas. Yeah, I know that the whole opposite from the game. Tiny heads, big bodies in the film. They crack me up. They crack me the hell up every time I see them. I don't know what it is. I just they make me laugh. Okay, I am going to try my best to figure out what this other thing that I wrote down is. Um, oh, that says performances. Okay, sorry about that. A little delay. Um, yeah, for the most part, I enjoyed the performances. Now, I'm not going to pretend that they were all fantastic. Um, like for example, the chick that plays Daisy, I don't think it was the greatest performance in the world. However, I there was some nice chemistry between her and John Leguizamo. But of course, the two performances naturally that really stand out are Bob Hoskins as Mario and Dennis Hopper as King Koopa. Um, there are some moments here and there between both of them that aren't uh, so great, but for the most part, I thought that they did a really good job, or at least right, they looked like they were having fun, even though I know behind the scenes, at the very least, Bob Hoskins certainly wasn't having very much fun. Um, okay, so that's the pros out of the way. Now we get to the stuff that um, people really want to hear me talk about, the cons. Um, I also put the premise in here. It's, of course, in the pros and cons category, because while the pro is that, hey, at least it's an interesting concept, the con would have to be that it is absolutely nothing like Super Mario Brothers, which, if you're going to adapt a game into a movie, that should really be the first thing you're looking for. Um, oh, here we go. The intro, the little um animated thing with the dinosaurs at the beginning of the movie. This is what I was talking about when I said production value for the most part. Yeah, this is that exception. That animated intro, I don't know what they were thinking, but it's horribly animated. The whole like the voiceover thing or the voice of the dinosaurs, it comes across as really stupid and weird and awkward and out of place and just yeah. Um, the third thing I have on the cons would be there is some really clunky exposition in this film. And when I said the performances, for the most part, were good from Bob Hoskins and Dennis Hopper. There's a particular moment from Dennis Hopper when he's basically explaining his evil plan, and it is some of the most ham-fisted exposition I have ever seen in a movie. I just the performance that's overall like really fun and really enjoyable. It looked like he was having a great time with it. That was just it stuck out like a sore thumb. It just oof. Another con I wrote down is world logic. Now, while there is some nice little world consistency, especially with the idea of the fungus and the way they made that everywhere, although that's more I would attribute to the production value part of it. Um, there are some things that just really I don't know. They just don't make sense to me. First of all, while I think there is chemistry between Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, I never got the sense that they were brothers. Uh, I don't know. It felt more like they were just like really good friends that had known each other for a long time. But the family part of it, not so much. I just wasn't feeling that. Ooh, excuse me. But the really big thing is the world itself. The idea of, as Dennis Hopper puts it, a few streets and an endless desert. That's the parallel dinosaur universe. Um, if this alternate universe has supposedly been around for as long as ours has, which is kind of the implication. At least that's what I gathered from it. How would they have survived? I mean, I can't imagine there would be that many resources because the desert would have to be, completely uninhabitable. So where did they get the resources for the city? How does the city continue to run? Wouldn't the city have already collapsed after all that time? I mean, that does not make any sense. Plus, the evil plan. Okay, so King Koopa wants to merge the world, so he merges them, or he wants to merge them. And what is his plan from there exactly to take over the world? Yeah, it goes back to the whole resources thing. Where would he get the resources or the manpower or the anything to take over the world? What are they going to use? The de-evolve guns? I mean, that's only going to get them so far against modern militaries. They'd get wiped out, and just there's also the whole everybody like not freaking out but like cheering and stuff whenever the worlds start merging. That felt very off. Um, Let's skip to the last thing I wrote down here because I want to save the second to last thing I wrote down for last. Um, the tone. Now, this film ranges from a movie that wants to be adult to a movie that wants to be very, kid friendly constantly. There's silly elements, there's serious elements, and they don't always work together very well. It's very awkward. And yes, I'm well aware that the whole reason behind that is because the studio wanted a kid-friendly film, and the directors, well, the original directors, before they essentially got fired from the film, wanted a very adult film. And you can definitely tell in the final product that there was heads butting back and forth. Um, and last and definitely the biggest con of all when it comes to this film is the name. Super Mario Brothers. I genuinely feel that if this film had a different title and had no references in it to Mario, like take out the bomb, the all kinds of stuff like that, the bullet bills, Mario, Luigi, Daisy, Koopa, take away all references, call them different things. This, I genuinely feel, could have been a cult classic. Definitely not a masterpiece. It's not a great film, but cult classic, definitely. It would have been one of those weird films from the 90s that's not bad. Eh, I'd say bordering on good. Um, but I genuinely feel that people would like this movie a whole hell of a lot more if it had no connection to Mario Brothers. That is by far its biggest flaw. And sadly, the reception of this kind of doomed video game movies from there on out. I genuinely feel that we still have yet to see a truly great film based on a game. There have been some that have come close to varying degrees, but we'll get to those when we get to those. Anyway, those are my pros and cons for Super Mario Brothers, and I will see you next time. This is Chatsu signing out.